Okay, we're live. Hey, Rehaan, thank you so much for joining me today, and congrats on your score 680. Um, Q47 V36, fantastic. Take us through your GMAT journey. How did you get started?
Firstly, thank you, Shaarang, for inviting me. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here.
Mhm.
Um, and basically, how it all started was back in school. Like I did my undergrad here as well. So halfway through, I decided that I wanted to pursue a business degree and an MBA specifically. So from then on, I started looking at how do you apply it to a good B school and what the application process is and everything. And so very early on, I made a distinction between the GRE and the GMAT, which are two entrance exams you can take
Mhm.
to potentially get to these schools. And long story short, I just like the concepts that the GMAT tested more than the GRE tested.
Mhm.
Um, the reading comprehensions, I mean, both of them have the same thing, but I just felt more value in learning how to articulate in English correctly, written English especially correctly, as opposed to just learning words, which the GRE makes you do. I just felt that this
And
had more
GMAT is
value.
less memory based compared to the GRE. You're right.
Yeah, and then after doing my undergrad here, I had lost that ability to, rely on memory and rote learning to get through exams. So that's the main reason I chose the GMAT.
Yeah. How did you get started? I mean, you chose that you wanted to you made up your mind you wanted to take the GMAT. How do you start your prep?
So I started my prep. The first thing I did was obviously go through the OG booklets,
Yeah.
and after going through a couple of questions, I realized that these are good as you know later on in your preparation when you're actually just need questions to answer and see how many you're getting right. But in terms of actually building concepts, somehow the OG wasn't doing it for me, which is why I started looking at online prep courses.
Yeah, tell me more about that though. How did you realize that? Because most people, and myself included, right? Like I spent a month and a half, 2 months just going through the OG, and most people do just that. They don't get to that point where they know that, you know what, I'm not learning anything new. So how was that process for you?
The main reason was because even though I was solving more and more questions, I was
Huh?
seeing that I was making mistakes on similar kind of questions a few days after I had already attempted something like that.
Right. So
And
you're tracking your progress.
I was doing a very rough tracking on paper, like there was no Excel sheet or something.
Sure.
I was just doing something because I wanted to. My initial plan, like everyone else's, was give the GMAT once, crack it, you're done, move on.
Uh-huh.
That's the end of the story. But yeah, so which is why I gave like importance to tracking my work. And
Very interesting. Yeah. So you realized that OG was not cutting it for you, and you wanted to get maybe a more fundamental training. So you Google for a couple of online test prep companies. What happened then?
I Googled a few of them and I found this one course,
Mhm.
which I started doing then because I was like, I need to build my concepts, especially in quant, to reduce the number of mistakes and all that. So I did that and I finished the course and I gave my first attempt.
Mhm.
And it was a major shocker in terms of what happened on test day. Like, because I wasn't anticipating the nervousness and anxiety on test day.
Yeah.
As,
How much did you end up getting, if you don't mind me asking?
I think I ended up getting a 620 on that exam.
Gotcha.
And this is after like a few months of preparation.
Mhm.
So it wasn't like I had just finished the course. Like I had finished the course, taken a few practice exams. I had prepared for it properly.
Sure.
So yeah, that was a major shocker for me when that happened.
Yeah. And what did you think after that? I mean, you have a 620, and you've got like a couple of months or years to go. You're a young guy. It's not like going like taking the GMAT and going doing your MBA this year is like must thing to you. So what was your thought process at that point in time?
Um, and I just felt that I wanted to complete my MBA
Mhm.
relatively early. Like 2 years of work experience is the minimum probably you can apply with.
Yeah.
to have a decent chance of getting into colleges. And so I wanted to keep that timeline going because in my mind I had made up my mind that I want to do a technical, like a coding job for X number of years and then transition more onto the business side, which I'm more passionate about. So I didn't want to waste time staying in the job just to get monetary benefits and some experience, which is why I had put in, like, I had given myself that hard target that this is the year you have to do it.
Mhm.
Come with me, you have to get it done. So yeah.
Gotcha. So you're at a 620 and you have that goal in mind that you have to get it done this year. So you go again. And when you go again, what do you look for?
So when I started looking at courses again, because I knew I had to, there were fundamental gaps after reading the questions. Like during the exam, I could see that okay, I don't know how the fastest way to solve this. Then I had to end up guessing because I ran out of time. Basically, everything bad happened
Mhm.
on test day, which I didn't incorporate in my preparation.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is why I started looking. I took a deeper dive into what courses are actually help you prepare not just the concepts but also help you with test readiness
Mhm.
and that aspect of the exam as well, which is equally important. Which is when I stumbled upon e-GMAT, on, I think, on GMAT Club. I read about it,
Mhm.
and so I read a few reviews of the e-GMAT, and I saw that everyone had good positive reviews and lengthy reviews. They weren't just like, okay, this is a good course,
Yeah,
take it, you know. There was a lot of emphasis given to the individual sections where people spoke about why this section is good, what they have done there. So I went for it, and they had the 7 day free trial,
mhm.
which was a very good thing because you get take a deep dive into the course. Basically, they give all access during the 7 days, and even the first, I think the mock that they make you take,
Mhm.
that was the changing turning point for me because I saw the mock and I was like, okay, this is the most accurate exam other than the OG GMAT exams.
Right.
Uh, is that the right um, level of difficulty? And so
Also, as you learned, right? Because did you look at the analytics after the exam and then did you maybe try to figure out what was your sort of weak point?
exactly, that was the amount of emphasis they gave on data
Yeah,
and collecting data of every single student was where I realized that this was actually worth every penny that they were charging.
gotcha.
Yeah.
And okay, you take a mock, you enroll. How do you start? Like, what's your first step?
So my first step was I knew I was actually, although I am an engineer, I was weaker at math because I tend to make a lot of mistakes in math. So I started going through the math prep courses,
Mhm.
like the section videos, and I kept in touch with the GMAT people, the support,
Sure.
and so whatever doubts I had, and they would literally reply the very next day. Like I had that, there was a guarantee that if I sent in a doubt on a Wednesday,
Mhm.
by the time I woke up, because of time difference, I would have the answer to that question no matter what.
Are these doubts more in like general prep related, or is it about specific topic,
It
or like
was it was about specific topics.
right?
In
So the people that you're talking about are is that on the forums with the subject matter experts?
I used the forums because forum most of the questions were already answered, so I used the forums to actually do
Gotcha.
that. But whenever wasn't answered, I just used to email them.
Mhm.
That was my main form of communication with them.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So you start with the concepts, right? You build. How long roughly do you spend building your fundamental concepts? Because you've already done something very similar with another test prep course, right? So do you spend extended periods of time building your concepts, or do you just jump to problem solving?
So it actually depends from section to section. That's what I think everyone should do is just introspect on what section they lack on. So, for example, inequalities was something I still remember I was struggling with back then.
Yeah.
So that is somewhere where I did all the videos, did all the questions possible, but some other word problem which I was more comfortable with, I just used to skim through those videos once I got a hang of it and just practice more instead of spending time more on the videos. But so yeah, it was section by section uh,
Yeah, but
thing.
what you're talking about is very interesting. You're super smart also. What you're saying is first take a test, identify your weaknesses,
Mhm.
and spend a good amount of time building your weaknesses. And your strengths, you can just sort of, you can count on those strengths and just go straight to problem solving. So what you're recommending is targeted strengthening of weaknesses.
Yeah, I mean, probably doesn't work for everybody, but this is an approach that has worked for me
Gotcha.
because usually the topics that I'm not good at, I really am not good at them. So I really need to work harder on those topics.
Got
So yeah, that's always worked for me somehow.
Gotcha. And you mentioned inequalities, right? Now, when people talk about math and like quant, there's a lot of hesitation to watch videos or to build concepts or to learn the theory behind concepts. People typically want to jump straight to problem solving. The belief is that, hey, Eric, it's math. So if I solve 100 problems, I'll get better. So what's your stance on that?
I definitely tried the approach that you mentioned earlier to just solve the problem, which is where the OG came in, and then that's
Huh?
when I'm realizing after a few days, you end up making the same mistakes,
Mhm.
and which is when like I started giving more emphasis because as you said, like math is math. That's what people think.
Yeah.
Like you know this. You just have to go through it. But the thing people that I not people, but I didn't take into consideration was the amount of time you get on each question,
Yeah.
which is where the fundamentals and the concept supersedes the basic knowledge and just cramming through a lot of questions.
Mhm.
So that was the main reason why I paid attention to concepts more than just practicing questions.
Yeah, and it's like the 700 level questions, the really, really hard questions, they're all just testing the concepts. They're not testing your ability to solve problems and like do multiplications and stuff. It's just
Exactly.
the hardest question I've ever seen, to be honest, on a GMAT exam tested even odd. Something as simple as even odd.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I completely agree with your advice that yeah, solving more problems does not lead to better accuracy. So, but you did strengthen your fundamentals, and then you moved on to the phase where you solved a bunch of problems, right?
Correct.
How many problems do you solve roughly? Do you have an estimate?
Um, so I know that e-GMAT has this very good question bank
Mhm.
called the Scholaranium,
Sure.
is what I used extensively. And I think by the end of it, I had finished all the medium and hard questions in Scholaranium,
Wow.
which
For both quant and verbal.
both quant and verbal, and in fact, the OG aspect as
Uh-huh.
well as
Yeah.
what e-GMAT, like
Wow.
the
That's like 3,000 questions roughly.
yeah, because I mean, after the first attempt, it really shook me to the core. So I had to go back and put my head down and actually work towards improving my score because so I just went for it after that.
Yeah. And did you also maybe track your problem solving like you tracked initially with your OGs? Did you go through Scholaranium tracking dashboard and then figure out?
I did, and which is why again, eGMAT actually helped a lot because they have their own, they're tracking.
Yeah.
They do track your progress on each quiz.
Mhm.
They give you the section wise. If you do like multiple section quizzes, they give you the section wise breakdown of how many questions you got right,
Yeah.
what that score is equivalent to, where you should be working more, and they did all that already. So once I started e-GMAT, my individual tracking reduced a lot because they were already helping you with all that.
Yeah.
I kept a track of what concepts I was struggling with, like within those sections, like math and especially sentence correction, just
Sure.
been topics that I was struggling with. But beyond that, keeping a tab on what my scores and all the quizzes were and all, I didn't have to because e-GMAT actually took care of it.
Gotcha. I think so. What you're saying is the manual aspect of the tracking was already taken care of, but you were still on the dashboard
Yes,
analyzing where you were still weak and figuring out what you could do to sort of strengthen those areas.
correct. Yeah.
Awesome. And did you have any help along the way, or was this just you by yourself going through the platform?
Oh, not at all. I mean, I had help from day one, like
Okay.
all the subject matter experts, like through email, especially, like all of them were, sorry, available literally 24 by 7. And many times, like after I was done with the quizzes,
Mhm.
I'd moved on to the mock, Sigma X mocks.
Yeah.
Um, they would actually send me videos
Oh, wow.
of where they actually went through my exam, like
Mhm.
went through all the data that I could see too, but they analyzed it for me.
Sure.
So they saved time over there too, like because their analysis was obviously they were experts at analyzing data and analyzing what the exam score meant. So they did that. They used to send me like short 8-9 minute videos
Mhm.
analyzing both sections like verbal and quant and telling me where I'm lacking, where I should be improving. And something like what the data actually showed, I was actually amazed with was there were a few questions where I took, obviously people know that if you take too long on a question, it means you're lacking in that concept.
Yeah.
But there were certain questions where I was solving them a little too quickly and they were quick to gauge that you're probably guessing on these
Yeah.
instead of actually going through the concept, going through the question. So this is something you should pay attention to.
Mhm.
Like you may think you're doing well at this, but it's probably just guesswork that is getting you through this particular paper, which is what helped me a lot.
Yeah, I mean that sort of personalization of um, feedback is kind of fantastic. And data is there, data is available, but someone who interprets the data for you and draws insights and asks you to focus on this, and the other thing, and that's how you should go through your prep. I think that's like a pretty rare resource, right?
Rare resource, and it was very valuable during this pandemic where you were literally all on your own, sitting in front of a laptop preparing for an exam.
Yeah.
Just having that someone guide you through these aspects of test readiness, which you wouldn't, like. I don't know if everybody would do this on their own.
Mhm.
So this was something that e-GMAT did, and I was really happy with it.
Gotcha. Now, just so our viewers have a better understanding, did you reach out to them or did they reach out to you? How did that, how was the conversation initiated?
So I think initially they reached out to me telling me that you enrolled for the class, you should take this one mock first,
Okay.
see what you do over there, then email us that you took the mock, then we'll analyze that. We'll let you know what the next steps are. So initially that it came from them
Mhm.
where they reached out to me. But after I got into the course, obviously I kept on bombarding them with emails, whatever concepts,
Uh-huh.
whatever doubts I had, I was then it became more of me initiating the conversations with them.
Gotcha. Understood. And now you've taken a bunch of mocks, you've worked on your weaknesses. It's test day. What was that like for you? Because you already have test PTSD from your first attempt, right? So how was your second attempt?
So, in terms of getting ready for test day, my second test day turned out to be an online test.
Oh wow.
So I couldn't take any of the uh, mistakes that I had made in the past
Uh-huh.
directly to the new test. But the good part about the online exam was it was right where I had been studying the whole time.
Yeah.
And I think it was the second time around, it was just the confidence that I had that I had done all the work. I had gone through the foundation to cementing those particular concepts
Mhm.
to taking short quizzes to then longer quizzes to then full length paper. So I was just like, I was mentally, I was calm and like that calmness that you have when you're prepared, when you feel you're prepared from within.
Mhm.
So
So basically, you had simulated the exam experience using Scholaranium or some other platform in this
Scholaranium,
prep process, and that made you be that confident.
correct, yeah, especially the mocks, because one aspect that I loved about the mocks, which a lot of people say they don't do, but they actually do on other mocks, is they just you can pause the exam basically at
Yeah,
any
there's
point.
no pause button here. Yeah.
If you're overwhelmed by a question, you can just pause for 30 seconds and then be like, okay, let's start.
Mhm.
But when you don't have that option, which is what the actual exam is about,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's when you actually start getting ready for a test. which is what I used to do, and I used to get much higher scores, and then be like, okay,
Mhm.
I'm okay. I took the first mock, and I was like, this is where I actually am. This is where I need to build from, because this is the perfect test simulation that I can get.
And it's a rude awakening. It's a horrible feedback to know that you're like a 600 level when you've put in like three months of work. But
Exactly.
yeah, super super needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed talking to you. Very, very valuable insights from you. And congrats on getting into Tepper, by the way. Super stoked to see how that works out for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Just hang up for a second, yeah? Let me
Mhm.
just pause this.